Hey, and welcome to another at home lesson from Grace in Motion. If you have not visited our website, I encourage you to go to gimsimple.net and look at the introductory materials that are there. There's a video that tells you a little bit about Grace in Motion and also can prepare you for how to best use these at home lessons with some other steps involved. For those of you that are ready to move on, we're going to continue with our Gospel of John series. We're almost to the end of it. We're in John chapter 18. This one I've entitled Killer Questions. And if you have a Bible or an app, go ahead and find John 18. And as a group, whoever you're with, or if you're by yourself, go ahead and read through John 18 and just kind of soak it in. And then we'll go into the discussion questions. First of all, we'll begin with what do you notice and wonder about this section of Scripture? So go ahead and pause the video and discuss that now. The other thing we like to look at when we look at these chapters is what do we learn about people and what do we learn about Jesus? So what do we learn about people from John 18 and what do we learn about Jesus? There's actually a lot of rich material here about different kinds of people and Jesus himself and the interactions between them. So go ahead and pause the video and have that conversation now. All right. So what we're going to do to focus in on some talking points here is look at some questions that were asked. Now, Jesus is a master question asker. So we will do that in a lot of other parts of the New Testament. But what we're going to do here is something unique, and that's looking at the character in this story called Pilate. So he is a Roman authority, and he asks some interesting questions. The first question we want to look at is in verse 29, and he turns to the people and asks the question, what charges are you bringing against this man? So go ahead and pause the video and talk amongst yourselves about what were the actual charges. What is it that people had a problem with Jesus? And now what we want to do is turn our attention to the questions that Pilate asks specifically to Jesus. So in verse 33, he says, "Are you the king of the Jews? Are you the king of the Jews?" And how would you answer that question? Another one that we want to look at is in verse 35. He turns to Jesus and asks, "What is it you have done?" So I encourage you again to pause and reflect. What is it that Jesus really did that brought him to this point? What is it you have done? And think about the ministry of Jesus and how we got to where we are. And then finally, the last question we want to look at from Pilate is in verse 38. Very profound, deep question. What is truth? What is truth? Now, one of the questions we skipped over is Jesus asking, "Who is it you want?" Earlier in the chapter. And you can look at that some more. But go ahead and have this conversation with whoever you're with. What is truth? And talk about that. Pause the video and do that now. All right. So, as I said, Jesus often answered questions. Well, he was a master question asker, is what I said, but he also often answered questions with other questions. Why do you think he did this? And in what ways is it effective? And how can it backfire on you? So, why do you think he did this? And why is it effective sometimes to answer questions with questions? Go ahead and pause the video and discuss that now. All right. And now here's one to wrap up the conversation with. This is a good one. What is one question? If you only had one chance and one question, what is one question you would like to ask Jesus? All right. Well, hopefully you had some good, rich discussion in this lesson. That brings us to the end, and it's time for that bye-bye blessing. So share something that someone else said or did that impacted you during this time. And as you go from this place, act with grace and simplify faith. Have a wonderful day.